Welcome to the Wild Pitch Podcast, hosted by Brian Gales, Jimmy Gales, Brian Dorsey, and Christopher Rojas.
All right, we're back with yet another episode of the Wild Pitch Podcast. And just so you guys know, I got a call from a buddy today who listens to us, and he goes, "Hey, you guys need to spice it up a little bit, and you need to be more funny." I said, "Hey, it's for the parents, it's for the kids." But I did say, I said, "We have a guy coming on today that is definitely going to spice it up." I said, "I've been following him." I said, "He's going to take it to another level and, using your word, Coach, making it crispy, I believe." So, but, Coach Ferber joins us. And, Coach, we, with our summer teams and everything we do, we're all about providing like a culture and, being a product of your environment. And, we want to let the people on the inside a little bit of just what it's like for the successful people, big leaguers, minor leaguers, what they did to be successful. And I tell you what, following you, I think that's really what I think you're about as well. So I guess first off, just welcome to the show. You have a huge following. We like everything you're doing, and thanks for being with us today.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. It's always nice when other coaches in the field and guys that do the same line of work, reach out and want to share ideas and connect, because there's so many different coaches. I feel like that it's kind of like a one-man show, and they don't want to, they don't need anybody's information. They're not worried about they're not interested in what you're doing. It's just like,
Right.
hey, I got the answers.
You got it all figured out, right?
Yeah. So it is refreshing when you see coaches that are into networking and finding out, different guys' perspectives. So thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. And before we even get into all like the coaching stuff and whatnot, tell me how you go from Coney Island to a junior college in California. How does that begin?
Well, I can tell you. Well, I grew up real poor, so I didn't have a lot of money. That was number one. And so in the 80s, I think, early 80s, there was a lot of crime in my neighborhood in Coney Island. So the guys that I was hanging out with and what I was seeing on a day-to-day basis wasn't really what you would call a lot of opportunity. It was just little groups of guys, some guys that were breakdancing, these guys over here were dealing drugs, these guys over here were the athletes, these guys over here were the spray paint graffiti artists, and everybody had their own everybody's competing in these little groups, right? Doing their own thing, whether it's sports or not, but and you kind of choose where you go hang out. My older brother just happened to be an athletic guy, and he hung out with some guys that were, they weren't let's just say they weren't the most straight shooters. They weren't the nicest characters in the world, but they did know how to compete, right? That's one thing. And I think that one of the things that I love about our game is that, whether you have a college degree, and you're book smart, or you're a street smart, like hustle respects hustle, and that's really, really what it comes down to, is that you can be a great motivator of people if you learn how to connect with somebody. And I feel like growing up in that environment and having to kind of be a chameleon really helped me later on with being able to connect with, a kid from the projects, as well as the CEO of a company that wants to do a brand collaboration deal. There's a lot to be said about, figuring it out as you go,
Absolutely. And it looks like you still kept a little bit of your tie to the graffiti people, right? I see. It looks like your CF is graffiti, right?
Yeah, all the logos. I feel like when I was first trying to come up with the logo, I kept dealing with guys that would do like graphic designers, and I kept saying, hey, I just want a simple Coach Ferber logo. That's all I want. I just want to put it, because what was going on was the videos that I was putting on Instagram in the beginning. People kept saying, hey, Coach, all my players would say, these guys are stealing your videos. I'd say, who's stealing them? Who cares? And they would say, oh, this guy over here, they're just reposting your stuff and they're not giving you any credit. I said, who cares? I put it out there. I didn't understand why it mattered. Right. Why does it matter? Well, it's your content. You're spending the time, and then all they got to do is click a button and they can get the same amount of views. I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm putting it out there. Go watch it. It was never to make money or to like own some content. But once you started seeing like Barstool and like a couple of people like that reposting videos, then it made sense to me to say, well, yeah, I guess you should definitely tag the guy that made it. So I was just looking for a watermark. Really, it wasn't really branding anything else. And so I kept looking different graphic designers, and I guess they were just doing like these copy and paste on Google.
Right.
So I remember I said, who knows the most about me is the guy that did all the tattoos, did all my tattoos, the tattoo artist who, my friend, Max Gold, his name's Adam Suerte. He's one of the top tattoo artists in Brooklyn. He used to be a graffiti artist back in the day. And that's a perfect example of a guy that was doing some graffiti he didn't have a lot of money, just doing his art, his craft, and all of a sudden he becomes one of the best tattoo artists in all of New York, and he's at big conventions worldwide. And so I went to him, I said, could you make me something? And he said, you have any? I said, just make it Brooklyn. Make it me. What's something I want? And the first time he did it, I was like, that's it. Thank you. I just told him, I said, yeah, some seams, make it a baseball, something. It was easy.
Yeah, it came out really good. And I know my brother and I actually we had some exposure to some big time graffiti guys, maybe about 10 years ago, right, Bri? They were doing some art stuff, and what a underworld that is, and a pretty cool thing to learn, like the inner workings of it. It was definitely an education.
Yeah, I gotta ask you, Ferbs, because obviously, I mean, I'm sure, I grew up in Brooklyn too in the '80s, so I kind of think, even though you probably didn't get into the graffiti thing deep, you still had a tag though, right?
I mean, I tried to listen. Everything. Put it this way. Back then, when you're just trying to find your identity, I tried literally all those groups that you guys were talking about. We talked about before. I tried them all. I tried to break dance. I was average. I had a little rhythm. I mean, I could pop and lock a little bit and do some different stuff. Don't get me wrong. I had some rhythm, but I couldn't do the type of windmills and crazy stuff because these guys, they had a knack for it. You know what I mean? And then, and then with the artwork stuff, I would see my friend blast the trains, and I would watch him. And man, and he would show me the pieces. You know how they show you. I'm like, man, that's so talented. I wish I could do that. I would go home and try it. Trash. I was trash. I wasn't good at it.
So you didn't even try to grab a can of spray paint and throw up a little tag.
I tried to until everybody clowned me and said, "Get that out of here, you garbage." But you know what it is that it's funny we're talking about because like I didn't have a lot of money, but I had this knack. I had a knack for squaring up baseballs, and it started with stickball. It started with stickball on the street, where I was able to compete with my older brother's friends, and just being picked not last in a game,
that was a win.
It made me feel really good about myself, and I didn't have a whole lot of stuff to feel good about at the time. So that little feeling, I was like, man, I like that. Like I'm gonna go practice this game because in basketball I was short, and I wasn't short for my age, but I was always playing with guys that were 3 years older than me. All my brother's friends. That's who I hung out with. So I would always get my shot blocked. So you got to kind of find a way for your skill set to add value. What can I do? I can rebound. I can foul somebody. I can steal a ball. You know what I mean? But I think that's real key in the development process, especially nowadays. Is like, be an athlete. Go try everything. Go try to freestyle rap. Right. If you're really good, if you have a knack for creating rhymes in your head and spitting them out, you can be like Jay-Z. He was doing it for nothing, just competing on the street, and now he's making $1 billion doing the same stuff. You know?
Sure. No, I think I love that because obviously what you're trying to, you try to get that message out that you never know what it is, what your hidden talents are, right? You got to experiment a little bit. You got to, test the waters and not be afraid at the same time also to make a mistake and you start to figure it out on the way.
Yeah, I think a lot of the structure that we have now with the way that youth sports is in general, where everything is completely organized. There's always parents, there's always adult supervision. We can't come outside and play without an umpire being there, without somebody ranking us, without a college coach watching. It takes away from that learning process.
Sure.
There's science that I read about that has to do with the first 5 years of every person's development, right? Like of a human is trust, right? You're learning who you can trust to feed you, to clothe you, to not hurt you, to keep you safe. The next from like 6 to 11, it's finding out who you are, right? And having awareness and be like, who am I really? And during those years, before you get into the later part, that early development part, if you just classify somebody as you're a baseball player and they're not meant to play, or you start really doing some aggressive, specialized training at a young age where a kid was meant to be a hockey player or a tennis player, but because your dad just loves baseball, I'm just going to keep grinding and doing baseball. And you can tell the kid's not passionate about it. The dad has to remind him to go hit. You know, those are the type of things I think that separate, you know, the guys that really get far, because once you find out your passion for something, then practice becomes fun. You know, and if practice is not fun, we all know how much this game is. We got to practice. If it's not fun, you're going to get bored with it real quick. Even the guys that are talented at it.
I mean, I think we can all practice. To me, I loved practice. So if people said, "You man, you work so hard," I almost feel guilty because no, I loved it. So, you know, and that's what you want for your kids, just to find something that they really like. So it's never a chore, you know. But so you go to, how do you get to California though? How'd that happen?
Well, my uncle, who's also from Brooklyn, was living in Redwood City at the time. He moved away when he was in his 20s. It was, I mean, the reasons about why he moved away was still to this day are a little bit cloudy. I think it had something to do with owing a lot of money to some guy from a Knicks game that he bet on.
Without mentioning names.
Yeah, I don't know for certain. I'm just speculating here, but he ended up moving to California. And so when I was right after I graduated high school, and I got in a lot of trouble, by the way, in my early years, like just as far as school, constantly getting in fights, getting suspended, getting expelled, got sent away to a juvenile hall. Like, not typically, you're not I think the most how do you say that, typical way to grow up. But
it wasn't storybook. It wasn't the white picket fence.
No, it wasn't. Definitely wasn't that. But I don't. It's not like I was abused. There's a lot of guys that had it way worse than me. You know, I still had a family. I mean, I had dinner every night. I was never hungry, which I'm really, really grateful to my mom and my dad for at least keeping the what they could do, what they had going. And so me and my brother never were the guys. I had friends of mine that would come over to our house to eat, and they were hungry. You know what I mean? Their parents literally had no food, and that's not a good feeling. So it made me really grateful for every day when I wake up that, you know, anything that I have good perspective on it, which I'm thankful for. But I do wish, if going back, the direction, I miss that. I wish I would have had a little more direction from either older people that I trusted, or, you know, somebody. And I think that's what baseball, in a way, I had a coach when I was real young that kind of gave me my first glove, showed me how to play. And, you know, that's kind of the angle that I take now, going back on it, is that baseball really it gave me some confidence in some ways that nothing else did. And it gave me something that I could feel good about, that I didn't have a lot to feel good about. And I think now that's the feeling that I'm trying to give to young guys that I work with, more than, I'm not like, hey, I'm just here as a coach to create the next big league. You know, I think a lot of coaches think that what we're doing, like the purpose of coaching is to create big leaguers. I just never thought that, because I just wanted to give a kid the feeling that, you know, this game, no matter what situation you may be struggling with, your dad's an alcoholic, okay, you got no money, you got bullied at school, whatever, you can't get a girlfriend, it doesn't matter. When you get on the field, all that disappears. You know what I mean? And it's like, how good are you today? How hard can you compete today? And that's more the kind of angle that I've taken on it.
And then, so you went and played a little independent ball, correct?
Yeah. This is in Oakland, California, in the 90s. And I went to this, so the JUCO I went to, Kenyatta College in Redwood City. It was like the first year they did that. Everybody, it was like an extra year of eligibility. It was in 95. And there was a lot of really good ball players. Almost everybody in that team either transferred to a D1 program or got drafted. And then actually after that, I ended up running a nightclub for several years, which is a really odd thing. It was in San Francisco. It's called the Glass Cat, and the Sound Factor. It was two different nightclubs that I was running and hosting. and that was a fun time. You
Oh,
know,
Brian would love that. He loves it. Love it. Big club time.
yeah,
That was before they were popping bottles, though, right? That was.
yeah. The new era where guys, you got to spend 5,000 to get in to get a bottle. I don't
Right.
like that. I don't. That's not for me.
Yeah.
VIP.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm glad. You guys are over at you guys are at Tri-State New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you like it so far? You in Long Island?
Yes, we're basically based out of Suffolk, but we get them from everywhere. But yeah, it's going. It's going. All
You guys work close with Abe?
right. Who's that?
Maybe he's from the other Tri-State Arsenal scout teams.
Yeah, I
Jersey
don't think-
side. He's probably linked up with
AJ on the
AJ. Yeah.
AJ, that's what it is. Gotcha.
Yeah, AJ. Yeah.
I sent him a couple of guys for Fort Myers last year.
All right.
It was for Fort Myers, for Jupiter or Fort Myers. I don't know. It was one of those. I think it was Fort Myers underclass.
Mm-hmm.
The sophomores. He was a lot of times. All the teams in the Northeast, we have these pockets of good players, but there's so many teams that
they bounce around. Yeah.
And then when we try to, everybody tries to go down to Florida, compete with those guys, and instead of joining forces, you go out there with these. Everybody's got one or two or three really good arms, but nobody wants to give any of their good arms up. So everybody ends up going down there and like competing, but like it's very tough when you got going against teams that have 10 or 11 starters on it.
Yeah. There's a different beast down there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, especially Jupiter.
Yeah. I think we have trouble sometimes just because we don't play that game where we're taking families out to dinner to get them to play for our 15-year-old team. We just don't. We know we can really help a kid. We can develop the kid, and we just put that out there. And if they come, they come. We gotta. Sometimes you do have to play the game, but what goes on, and the parents all think they're agents for their kids. And, I mean, you know how it is. It's interesting to say the least. So,
can I tell you something crazy?
Yes.
I had a kid call me recently. Said there's actually a few different. I'm not going to say the names because this is not appropriate. But there are actual teams in the Northeast that are actually still having tryouts now.
We see it posted on Instagram. It's crazy.
I know, like opening their facility, and even when they're all mandated government shutdown, they're opening their facility and having groups of 4 and 5 kids try out for summer. Check it out. When we don't even have,
we don't even know if we're going to have one, right?
so you're putting all these kids at risk, and this is my thing. This is why some of the stuff with amateur. This is why I like the fact that we get a chance to talk as coaches and amateur coaches and travel teams and things, because what all these guys talk about is character, and they say all the catchphrases, and they talk about development and character and leadership and attitude, and then honesty, and then but for me, is that a coach's fault or is that a parent? If I'm a parent and I'm saying here's a guy that is asking me to break a government policy rule when Major League Baseball, the professionals aren't playing, they don't have a date, but we're amateurs and we somehow have a date. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
And we're gonna do all that and break all those rules and risk all those people no matter what. And that's the guy that I want my kid to learn.
Talk about a red flag, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious right there where his interests lie. I mean, it's not really in the betterment of the kid or his group, whoever it is he's associated with. It's just all about his feeding his ego and making sure he's I guess trying to get the leg up on somebody else in his mind, whomever's trying to.
But it's the parent's ego. It's not the kid. The kid just dragged around.
Not the kid, no, but the person who's actually facilitating it, right? Who's trying to start trying to get these parents into the door. But that's where parents need to, they need to wise up also, like figure it out. You know what I mean? Start, asking yourself questions like, wait a minute, this is probably not the wisest choice right now.
Like I think a lot of parents. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Some of these parents are all about that. The attention that their kids wanted, and that's
Well, do you see that? I mean, on your end, you've been around the travel landscape for a while now too, and I know you do a lot of the individual stuff, but the parents, a lot of times it's about themselves. It seems like, or they're living vicariously through their kids. It's. I think that's a big hurdle nowadays too.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things that parents do, we as coaches, we allow parents to get away with whatever they want. So what happens is a coach that's, let's say, a new guy that's just coming on to travel baseball, he wants to give it a shot. He says, hey, man, I know how to coach. And there's a lot of guys that have the ability to do it. And then when they see what it actually is, they go, oh, wait, I didn't know that I had to actually talk to parents. Yeah, that's the hardest part. It's not coaching on the field. Everybody can do that. Yeah. Do you have enough organizational skills to let a mom and dad know 6 months ahead of time where they're going to be staying in a hotel and airplanes and everything? Or are you going to push it till a week before the event and have people scrambling and have people completely stressed out? What you see is they're so scared to implement rules. Coaches are, especially for the top guy on the team, they're so scared about losing a stud, right? That they think that all the other studs are going to follow them. So they'll let the stud do anything he wants, show up late for BP, get away with whatever. And then if it's the kid that's the fringy player and he's not hustling or he's Cadillacing it down the line and he's not really a main guy, yeah, we'll blow him up in front of everybody, right? Make an example out of him, but the other guy can do no wrong, right. Or because I feel like, having a really good set of guidelines and rules to stand by and actually following it would prevent a lot of this stuff.
Sure, consistent message, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild west now, though.
It is. I mean, we got kids leaving teams. Think about this, guys. You guys are all about. I'm 42. You guys are all around my age, or you look younger, Brian. How old are you? How old are you guys?
I'm 44.
We're both
just 40. Turned 40 last week.
Yeah, I'm 44 also.
Okay, so you guys, it's perfect. It's perfect. I'm 42. Think about when you were growing up. If you went and played a couple of games with your local team and your boys you played with, and you went home to your father and you said, "I'm not playing short, and I'm not batting in the top of the line top of the lineup.
I don't want to play anymore. Find me another team."
Find me another team.
Yeah.
It wasn't even an option.
No. That's today's landscape. That's the normal today. That's fine. Keep bouncing around until you find somebody who gives you what you want, as opposed to working for it and earning it and making it happen for yourself. So it's a different environment, to say the least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that does come from inside the home, though. I know we talk about the parents, but inside the home, I think, you said it best. Would your father have allowed you to do that? And there's no way in hell I can imagine ever signing up for something and then it being okay to kind of just, this ain't working out for me because I'm not the considered the best player on the team. I'm going to go find someone else who's going to treat me that way. So.
Right. And it's not about the coach's son is playing my position. It's not about maybe that happens once in a long while. And it's not usually like, oh, I'm not getting treated fairly from that perspective. It's always comes down to I'm not getting what I want.
Right.
So now I'm going to go find somebody who will give me what I want.
Yeah.
Yep. So so Coach, one of the things that really drew me to seek you out, as the group here with Josh was we had some experience with Travis Honeyman in his 8th, 9th, 10th, grade years. And, when he was going to BC and whatnot, and great kid. But I happened to see him. He actually told me about you years ago. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, man. That's terrific, But now that I'm following you, I see him taking swings. And I went, oh, my Lord, this guy, he polished up Travis. I mean, and Travis is a tough nut to crack, as you know. He does things his own way. And, he was always a really good player. But to see that, I was like, all right, I'm digging in on this guy because he's doing all that stuff we wanted him to do, and he got him to do it. And then I think the biggest thing, and I think that's what kind of makes us all, I mean, we think we're decent coaches because I relate to the kid because I did hit. And then I see you hitting in the cage, hitting the crispy liners I said, I go, listen, this guy, he knows what he's doing because he can feel it. And I think that's so important as a teacher. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I mean, it's a lot for me. Like, I'm really gonna be, I think, sad the day that I can't, I can't hit a line drive just through the infield. I'm okay as long as I can. I don't need to hit home runs. I honestly don't. I just want to be able to hit a ball hard up the middle and feel like I did it right, even if it's off a BP. I don't need to do it competitive anymore. I feel like it's good for my soul, for my mind, and it's a way for me to be at peace with my surroundings that you don't really get that much in regular daily life. And
well, look, if you keep doing those prison push-ups, you're going to be able to do that till you're 65.
I love what you said the other day. Like, who gets jacked even more during the quarantine?
You're gonna get shredded out here in quarantine.
Yeah.
What's a couple of things that guys should, young hitters, what's a couple of tips that you can give them on just kind of things they should really concentrate on nowadays with all the, there's a lot of noise on social media.
Right. Well, I think that a lot of times what happens is when we're young, right? The biggest thing that we have to keep intact is the imagination. There's an imagination element to what we're doing here, where when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you have to be able to dream that you're Mike Trout. You have to be able to put yourself in that type of framework, and in order to, that's why they have 200-foot fields with drop 10 bats, so kids can feel that exhilarating feeling of hitting a home run. You know what I mean? Or else I think there'd be a lot more guys that drop out before. But as coaches, we get to a point where we accumulate all this knowledge over the years, and we know how precise the game gets at the higher level. We know how execution, and it becomes so important, and how the ball comes out of your hand, and what your swing pattern, how efficient it is, and all this other stuff that is true, but it's meant for a certain time in a guy's development, when he has a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of testosterone, a certain amount of competitive nature, a certain amount of
ability to adjust and aptitude. Like that, you don't get that until you're older. Sure.
Yeah. So I think for the young guys, building dynamic bat speed, however that is, being able to create the sequence for bat speed, for throw hard or to hit a ball hard, is more key than anything. Because the thing that you hear the most from coaches or dads, let's say, that at the little league level, and by the way, there are some phenomenal dad coaches out there. I know a lot of really good ones.
Yep.
Usually their kids are really good too. Go figure, right?
It makes it easier to manage.
Yes, but what I've noticed is that our feedback for young players, for pitchers from, I don't know, the last 50 years of what do we want them to do is, hey, just throw strikes, right? That's typically what you hear in games the most from parents. And so what a kid does when he hears that is, okay, I can dial it back and groove one over the plate, and I'll get it there. And the visual feedback of boom, strike, boom. Now that the kid hits it, if it's a terrible pitch, that's my reward. I'm not walking anybody at 9 years old. At 10 years old, I'm not walking anybody. When in reality, if you took a plywood board, I talk to my friend Lance Wheeler about it all the time. You take something with a piece of sheet metal, you put over it, and you give him the ball and just say, look, I don't care about strikes. Make the loudest noise on this piece of metal this sheet metal as you possibly can. It is boom, 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 and that's audio feedback, which is what plays. It's telling a guy it's okay. It's not, precision is not what the main goal here is. Intent. When we have to unlock intent, hitting the same thing. I'm throwing little ping pong sized Nerf balls at kids that are that age and letting them drop bombs and just like pump them up so big in their mind, inflate their ego and their self image to a point where, man, they just feel like, man, I'm really good, man. Like I am really good at this.
Right.
Like
and then they gain interest in it, right? They start to enjoy it.
Well, listen,
100%.
I think that the biggest thing that, and I'm of the same thought process, and Chris, we talk about it all the time, is that I don't want to take their natural body movements away from them. So I have two little boys at home, and they're only 5 and 8. But if I don't give them any instruction, and I tell them hit the ball as hard as you can. Now their body's like gathering, they're lifting their front leg, they're getting into themselves. That's natural. I don't want to make them a robot at that age ever.
Yeah.
Or anybody.
Yeah.
If you guys notice, okay, the best hitters, all of them, in Little League, 9, 10, 11, 12, they pull the baseball.
Right.
Every one of them. Now, I will tell you, there's a couple things. Most of the best hitters, they swing really hard with a lot of intent. They're pretty good visually. They can pick up pitches out of a throwing box. They're good with vision, with picking up and knowing that this fastball, they're looking to really, really do damage, which creates pull side shots. Then we get to the next stage, and where winning a game becomes a little bit, every time winning becomes a little bit tougher, there's coaches out there that manage games different ways. It's not right or wrong. It's not as a high school coach says, hey, I just want you to not strike out and just kind of try to fillet balls in the right field. What he's doing is he's giving you a Band-Aid for the situation for that particular day of, I want to get this guy to go 1 for 3 and win this game because we're trying to win a state championship. It's not wrong. It's just that those mechanics, those pull side mechanics where guys can really swing hard, sometimes are coached out of them at 12, 13, 14. And I'm not saying it's bad to go to opposite field. I think it's very good to be able to do it, but doing it the right way is key. A lot of times I see young kids misinterpret letting a ball get deep with hitting a ball like past their midline, where they can't even get the barrel out. They constantly feel jammed. That's the worst feeling. You know that worst feeling of not being able to, because they let the ball get so deep. You don't have to just, in certain situations, it might call for that. But I think that if you're just looking for that, it kind of takes away some of the athleticism of the guy too,
Yeah, and we find that at the college level, the kids' inability to handle the bat, right? They can't. We're very big on, hey, I want you to drive a ball through the second baseman. Like, we'll hit targets just so they can feel their bat, create angles. But we're very big on everything, even if it's going the other way. I want to hit the ball out front. I want to go get that thing. You know what I mean? And they can't hit a ball where they want. They can't hit a fungo straight. They can't play pepper. And these guys are good players. So handling the bat is just, I think, a big thing, with the hitters.
Well, what you're talking about there with the fundamental stuff, you'd be surprised. I talked to Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt. I have 2 guys on his team. He's recruited multiple of my guys, and all different UNC, NC State, every Wake Forest, every school that you could imagine. I have a guy in there that I was personally with through high school, and a lot of the coaches will tell you, you would be surprised that all these showcase tooled out players that you see in a lot of these perfect games, the guys that are overtrained and underdeveloped, right? So they're overtrained. They can do all these things on metrics.
Right. They don't have no feel for the game.
And they can't even play catch. They have to literally teach them how to play catch at
That's
Vanderbilt.
embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
Like literally can't throw a chest high glove side throw to your throwing partner from 90 feet away.
Right.
Can't throw it 3 times in a row. Can't do it. And that's why when we go to watch big league games and we're not watching guys warm up. The kids we're not watching guys in between innings. We just want to see a guy hit a bomb, and then we're eating popcorn and putting Instagram, and we're not even watching the game. We have to look at what are big leaguers actually doing to warm up in between innings, like playing catch. They're catch. The only reason a guy short hops a ball is if he wants to do that and the guy's working on it. Everything has a purpose,
Yeah, no, I love that last statement right there. Everything does have a purpose, and I think too many of our young athletes and coaches also are not, they're just not instilling that thought process into the kid's head. You know what I mean? So they're being put out to pasture without direction to where the food is at. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's been a challenge, to say the least, how the game is kind of developing over the last few years as you watch it play itself.
Well, and you do a great job of putting all that content out there of how the best do it, and I like a lot of the stuff you're putting out with just their front toss and their tempo, how they're balanced, they're handling their bat, they're just going through 50%, feeling it. you know, we have Frank Catalanato as our head coach over at New York Tech. So between our staff, we have two major leaguers, two AAA guys, and we try to tell a guy that's hitting on our team that we've never played with or done it anything that you're doing. We've never seen anyone do it, and they still don't. Oh no, but I'm on Instagram, and this guy said to do this. I'm like, it's no. These guys are like you say, like with your post. It's right there, right in front of you. This is how you train and how you handle your business, right? I mean, I think that's what you do really well.
There's a huge breakdown on the private sector of guys that are training guys individually in a batting cage, and then the guys that are field coaches.
Right.
And the same way, there's almost the same thing you have between high school coaches and travel coaches. Why that is probably ego and things that insecurity would be the only thing that would make it that if me and you guys had a player that I was training, it was Travis Honeyman.
Yep.
You were coaching him on the field, and I was training him, or vice versa. If you think you can adjust the guy, if I think I can adjust the guy's swing without seeing a lot of in-game video, having a good relationship with him, watching him take at bats in games, the first thing you ask somebody is, I would have to ask you, like, is he taking fastballs down the middle of the pipe? Is he swinging at sliders in the dirt? If we're doing all that stuff, why are we talking about mechanics? We're guys go straight to mechanics and let's rebuild something and try to reinvent the wheel. And they don't get to the simple stuff that you can eliminate all these check marks about, what your approach is before you get to the hardest thing, which is repatterning somebody's brain.
Right. And there's no collaboration, like you're saying, because of the egos. That's the thing. They don't want to hear it. Everybody, oh, I got this. You get that from the high school coaches, and some are awesome, and some were the science teacher that he wanted the job and he got it, and he's telling the kid, you're not going to swing like these pros are telling you. And it just becomes a whole thing, as you know.
Well,
but even on the other end of that, though, I think on the other end of that, though, you got the guys that are just cage rats, and it's paralysis by analysis, right? There's no, again, the game feels pulled away from it. It's not an element because the coach or the instructor is not privy to or not aware of what the kid's doing in an actual competitive environment.
Well, there's no adrenaline going. It's not a game situation. When somebody's trying to run a ball into the battle of your batter, you're taking swings off the tee. That's why, guys, I'm concerned a little bit about, all the data and technology stuff. I do think some of it's useful and valuable. The problem, and that people don't understand when they're talking about putting a blast motion sensor on the end of a bat or dynamic kinetics, these are great tools, right, to know information, to give us information, but there's no context for it because if it's like, let's just say I'm in a game, right? I've been taking swings on my blast motion in the cage, off a front toss and T swings. I'm getting my bat angles, my launch angles, my bat speed, my attack angles, all this other stuff, exit velo. And in the game, I get fooled on an 0-2 pitch, and I flex through a slider, really stay on when I battle through a count. But I'm in an uncomfortable position. I did everything I could to compete and win that at bat, and I got a base hit. That's the best thing I could have done. It was a great battle. But the metrics on my blast motion bat, they don't know that. They don't know that I got fooled.
Right.
They don't know that swing, what I was looking for. They don't know that I was looking fastball and he came with a filthy changeup. And, guys don't. That's the same reason it frustrates me when I see these hitting guys break down Major League Baseball home run swings and break down at bats because no one knows what the hitter's doing. I was talking to one of my guys the other day, Kevin Smith, of the Toronto Blue Jays, in Double-A right now, and he said the third or fourth at bat of spring training, he saw a guy who was on a righty, and the dude threw a slider that was so wicked and tight that it threw it to his right hip. He thought it was going to hit him 100%, was going to get hit. It buckled him the way he felt. He felt like he was completely, like his soul came out of his body.
I know that feeling.
But the catcher caught it. The catcher actually, it wasn't a strike. It was like about 3-4 inches inside plate, but he was like, whoa. He was like, I was completely fooled. Okay. I had no clue what I'm doing. Now, when you look at the video, and I looked at the video with him, it didn't look like
As
he was
bad as he described it, probably.
yes, he was like it
Right.
looked like I flinched. He like it could see a little bit like
Right.
boom, but
Right.
he didn't. He said inside it felt like he was completely lost, had no idea, didn't even see it. So this is why when guys go, look at this great at bat, how this guy
You
just came
don't
with
know. You
dude,
don't know, man.
he could have got beat by a fastball. Thought he was completely beat or something. Last second, just threw his bat out there and he but man, great piece of hitting. And he'll go, no, it wasn't a great at all. I was luck.
Right.
Hey, I think I hit 5 or 6 home runs over 9 years because I was a little guy, but I also, wasn't the best hitter in the world. But I can tell a story about all 5 or 6 of them. I don't remember. We'll call it 6 just for the hell of it. But it was, I'm gonna hit and run here, or this guy has so much movement, I'm just gonna shorten up. It was always like doing something really small and something big happened, right? And I probably tried hitting a home run 500 times, and I was 0 for 500. So, and what I've been telling a couple guests recently, the data, and you alluded to it before, was that hey, when I was in Akron, Ohio, in AA in 2005, and I have 2001, and I have a decent year, maybe I could look at my ground balls and say, all right, I'm going to make this slight little adjustment through my fingertips, because I have such a feel for my bat that, all right, I'm going to try to ground out a little less. Maybe I hit some more doubles. But I'm 25 years old at that point. That's when I can use that data, I feel. But we got kids starting with that data and trying to accomplish that.
Data. Guys that all they focus on in data is like when data is. If we're talking about driving a car, and I've used this analogy a few times, what it reminds me is that when we get in our cars, right, we're driving. What do we typically think about? We think about gas, brake, steering wheel, right? Maybe a radio, a side view mirror, the basic stuff we need to drive that car, right? Data guys are interested in like turning radius and like oil pressure, things that we know make the car work. They're happening, but we don't need them to drive the car. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of stuff that data we have that it's there, it's available, it's great information at, but see, we don't need it to accomplish hitting a ball really hard.
Right.
And so
it seems like you can tie this into what I heard you speak of in some of your segments is let the ball do the talking. The result of what the baseball does.
Yeah, the ball can be your feedback. Letting the ball be your feedback, and that's why a lot of hitters, the best thing we can do as coaches is to have kids get to a point where they're telling us, "This is what I'm doing today. This
100%.
is what I'm working on today," and it becomes a conversation rather than me just telling you do this, do that, get your elbow here, get your foot there. It's not we want kids to be their own best coach. We've done a great job as coaches if we've done 2 things. If we took that kid that was 11, because remember, as good as how many coaches, we got really good quality coaches on this call right now, there's a lot of bad coaches. And it only takes one to ruin a kid's whole baseball experience, to embarrass him at a young age in front of people for no reason, for making a physical error or a mistake, for trying to be a big shot, have an ego problem. You can ruin a kid's experience. So for me, my whole thing is if I can just get this kid and pass him along to the next coach with his imagination intact and just have him love the game so much, everything about it, even the failure part of it, it's like, dude, it's okay. And we can pass him on to the high school coach, the college coach, the pro scout, then we've done our job. You know what I mean? Sometimes, if you get too quick with giving guys the things that aren't fun about baseball, you can create a little bit of a problem,
Right. No, I absolutely love that. I loved what you said. Like, I knew it when I was giving lessons and stuff. I would always want to know, you tell me what you did wrong. And when you can 2 or 3, like Brian and I always said, usually 3 years of working with a kid, they know everything where they can teach it themselves. And you're having those conversations where they're answering their own questions. And now in game, they don't need, how many kids, right? They want in game, they want you there. It's like, no, it's got to be yourself. You got to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, people don't realize that if you when you talk about giving a guy a crutch, right? And you talk about
Yes.
giving a kid a crutch. I said I would bet a lot of money if I could take two kids, make them twins, right? You know how they do those experiments where they separate kids at birth?
Yeah, and you get like a
Right?
placebo, and then you do the testing on one.
Like okay, let's just say we had some twins, right? We had two Dominican twins, all right? We had Juan Carlos and Jose Apolonio Cortez. I don't know who, whatever we're gonna call them, right? We're
I
gonna
thought
say,
you were gonna say Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
exactly. So these guys are identical twins, meaning let's just say they have the same genetic, physical ability, makeup, the same ceiling and all that, right?
Right.
Same athleticism, twitch, height, weight, and all that stuff. And then we take one at 5 years old, and we say, you know, we're going to give you a tutor for your schoolwork every single day to help you with your schoolwork from now until you get out of school. And we take the other kid and we say, hey, man, figure it out. You're on your own. All right, cool. You know, at first, the kid that's getting explained to him by a tutor every little thing, going back to school with his quizzes and homework and getting all these grades right, and he's just bouncing things off. He gets his help, and no, you don't do it this way. You do it this way. He at first he has a head start. I'm not going to lie, because somebody that knows a lot about something is hand picking him information and just giving it to him. But when we get to 10th grade or 11th grade, and we take both of those, we take the tutor away and we put both of those kids in an SAT or a hard test where there's no longer like, you know, I have a crutch. You know, sometimes you see the guys that are able to figure it out themselves and don't need somebody to go to get all the questions. Like, I feel like it's the same way with hitting coaches. When we have kids that are there's hitting coaches that want kids to rely on them. They want the kids to rely on them to tell them if that was a good swing or not a good swing.
Right.
You mean to tell me you don't know what a good swing is and what a bad swing is?
Sure. They need that coach's affirmation all the time. They always they need to go up and say, how was that, coach? How was that, coach? When you actually don't want that. You don't want to instill that. You want to be like, listen, because this game, as you know, coach, and you talk to all these guys at these highest levels, and you know, all of us in here play pro ball at some point in time in our careers. This game's about adjustments, and you have to be able to make these adjustments on your own, right? Over time, you start to identify, you know, your flaws. You start to have more awareness in your physical capabilities. You start to grow mentally, right? And you then need to take all those applications so that you can then identify when you have to make a change, right? And that adjustment comes from experience, and then having coaches who kind of word things to you and talk to you in such a manner that makes you process it so that you can be able to go out there and apply it, as opposed to you coming to me and asking me all the time, well, how's that helping you? That doesn't help
100%,
you.
100%. The way that a lot of the hitting coaches that are out there I've seen do it, like they'll see a kid hit a double in the gap, like smoke a double in the gap, hit a ball hard, like one hop the wall, and they'll be like, yeah, I don't know, man. You weren't like your position. You weren't in really a good position. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, wait, you're telling me you're not even going to let me appreciate one of the hardest things there is to do. You're not even going to let me feel that I did something right? No, because you want me to come in here because, no, you should. If you would have gotten your back to this angle, you would have gotten it. It would have been over the. No, it wouldn't have. It was the exact thing that was meant to happen at that exact pitch location with the speed of that pitch, the spin of that pitch, where your barrel was at that particular split second in time. There was nothing more you could have executed on that pitch. Nothing better. That was what meant to happen. They don't look at it like that. It's crazy.
No, and I think breaking down a game swing of even the best players in the world is useless. Show me what he does in the cage when he's in a controlled environment. Yeah, maybe I'll copy that swing. But I broke down on every single swing. That pitcher's trying to break me down. You know, it goes right back to what you're saying. So, unfortunately, Coach, I think there's more bad coaches than good ones. You know.
Well, it's like baseball players.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but you know what it is that you try to surround yourself with a few. I've found that you know, and we all have had them growing up. It's crazy how I literally went from like the most impactful, unbelievable coach to start me off. Right. And thank God I had this great foundation of like, no, like no matter what anybody says, you're good. You know what I mean? You don't need to base who you are. First of all, you're not a baseball player. You're Jason Ferber, and then you're a baseball player. You know, you have other things. You don't define yourself as a baseball player because if you get injured or something happens, you can't play anymore, then what? You know,
Right.
It's like this is something that I'm passionate about, that I know that I'm gonna, you know, I'm pushing, I'm going to the highest level with it. But you know, I feel like then you can also run into a guy that is a terrible coach and he can make it tough for you. But if you get that terrible coach early on, that I think is
It's hard
worse
to
than
recover
getting.
from.
Yeah, when you get to college, you know, you're going to see a guy maybe give some favoritism or this or that. You know, maybe you get to 13 years old and you run into a coach that's a dad that has a son playing short and, you know, he's playing your position and you go, oh, man, you see it, oh, man, it's all political or something. And there are things that, you know, but before that, when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, man, like we have to do a better job, I think, with those ages to keep guys more engaged and not lose them to football and basketball where, you know, stuff isn't, you know, even there are crazy parents in every youth sport. I'm not saying there aren't, but baseball is a little bit overboard.
Coach,
I
if
guess,
you have to pick one hitting coach out there besides yourself, who are you going to tell a kid to pay attention to? One guy.
To pay attention to.
Hopefully not teaching.
I get asked all the time, hey, you're not doing lessons anymore. I can't get this guy. Who do I send him to? And I go,
Are you talking about New York or anywhere?
No,
Yeah.
anywhere. So it could be, you know.
Your own son needs hitting lessons. Where are you sending him?
And I know there's a bunch of good guys out there.
There's a bunch, yeah.
One guy.
Wait, one guy. I'm gonna say.
You put him on the spot.
No, it's because it is because there's a lot of good guys. You know what? I really like the way Casey Smith from Out Front Hitting communicates the stuff. See, it's a hard question because some guys explain it really well, and some guys I like the mechanical part of what they're teaching. They just don't explain it really well. Some of the guys that you guys are referring to and things like you what happens is they haven't taken the time to think out how they're going to deliver their information. So their information becomes misinterpreted and they get a bunch of kids doing things that they think they're doing the drill, but they're not executing it properly. The danger is a lot of the coaches will see something on the internet and they go, hey man, I want to be involved with the newest, most cutting edge type of hitting style, but they don't take the time to learn it before they teach it.
Right.
And so if you want to be a teacher, you know, teachers have one of two things I've found in life. They got a lot of life experience at something. Even if you don't have a degree, you would have a lot of real life experience. And that's one of the most valuable things you do. It's like, you know, for some reason, I think people think that, you know, I know that some of the data guys are not baseball players. I know that we have women strength trainers at the pro level and everything like that. And I as coaches, and I'm all for it because they're experts at their field. But when you start having guys that are teaching something like hitting, but they were pitchers, and you can get to a certain level, but then it's going to become really tough to talk about the things that happen on a high level. So that's why I send all my catchers to one specific catching coach. I know the basics about catching up till, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 years old. Then after that, I don't know. I was a third baseman. You think I care what a catcher's telling a pitcher when he called timeout? Nobody cares. People like, man, get off the mound and go throw, man. Go throw some strike. Give me a ground ball, right? So I don't know how to tell a catcher how to communicate with a pitching staff exactly. I don't know. I don't know what I would tell a pitcher. I would tell him, can you please throw a strike and stop being an idiot?
Yeah.
Wind up being that parent. Throw strikes.
Yeah. So I think knowing what we're good at, I see coaches out here, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm just having a conversation. But if you're a trainer of a kid and you a pitching coach, a catching coach, an infield coach, a hitting coach, and you're like a strength, I'm like, wait a second. How is that possible that you're that good at all those things that you can teach it? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's that
So-
quote? Master of
Jack of all
something.
trades, ace of none.
Yeah.
But
It's-
I mean, most of them aren't even jack of all trades. They're like fucking the two. Excuse me, you gotta have to bleep that one out, Josh. They're like the two of hearts instead of the jack of jack of aces. I mean jack of
Yeah.
spades. So
It's
And
like a used car salesman mentality or something.
yeah,
And you know what I find? I mean, now in the age of Instagram and putting yourself out there, I just can't bring myself to do it because I'm afraid of people telling me how terrible what I'm teaching is. I don't want to get into fights with people, so I don't do much. That's why we do this podcast, But I see what goes on in Twitter, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not getting in there.
I'm telling you, I had to get to a point where people, man, they'll judge you. And that really crippled me. The first, I don't know, years ago when I first started doing individual lessons, putting my stuff on the internet, I never realized that people cared so much about what I was doing with the cage with some random kid they knew nothing about. I don't know why they would even have if you don't like what you're doing, just keep moving.
right.
I didn't get that, but
They start trolling you, right? They start leaving these nasty comments and stuff.
Yeah, but the crazy part about the guys that they'll send comments, but they won't put their own work out there. So if you got better swings, why don't you put some of your guys out there, put your content out there, so let other people, at least I'm putting something out there. Like if you don't agree with it, cool, but put something. Don't just poke holes in somebody else's theories. Now, but for me, I had to get away from worrying about what the guy in the next cage was thinking about the drill that I was doing, because some of the drills that I've done with kids had nothing to do with like some kind of a fundamentally sound skill or something that guys have been teaching for a while. They all had a purpose that I saw, but some of the stuff I was doing, I was doing games that had nothing to do. I was throwing playing cards at kids, having them try to catch like spinning cards, like throwing cards at them. And guys in this cage go, man, what, his parents paying for that? Yeah, because the kid, I'm trying to figure out if he can make an adjustment on his own without me telling him this is how you actually catch a card that somebody throws at you in the air from 10 feet away and it's spinning all that looks like a slider coming in. And if a kid just keeps doing the same thing and he doesn't make an adjustment, then I know that his brain is not really built for that. It's not built like that. I got to work with him a little differently. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, I've seen kids all different kinds.
I'm sorry, Jim. Just because I know, because we talked about you going out to Cali, and then you talked about the JUCO thing and indie ball, and then you were running the nightclubs out there. Were you playing salsa music in there, or was it just straight hip hop?
We had salsa on Wednesday nights, my guy. Salsa Wednesday night.
He didn't go to Canada Junior College. It was Canada.
But how did you get back? I mean, back to the East Coast, and how'd you dive into this? Like, how did you dive into like really being this guy who's so energetic, who's positive, who has this this attraction to him because you have this fascination with teaching kids and develop them. How did you get to this? Like, walk us through that a little bit.
So I started working at doing mortgage financing after I did the nightclub. I was doing mortgage financing. Actually, I thought was a real, this is like, hey, now I got a career, I'm making money, this is a good job, until I found out that the whole entire mortgage business was all a fraud, and I was the only one doing it properly, and everybody else was making all this money. I'm going, wait a second, you're not supposed to white out that guy's name on his W-2. That's not. Wait a second, you're not supposed to pay the guy makes $200,000 if he makes $15,000. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. What do you mean? Anyway, after that, it gets to, I met my wife now, who was working at a company at the same time. And I had an opportunity. It was one of the guys I knew that lived in New York that opened a real estate company. I was on the mortgage financing side on 52nd and Lexington. It was called Gotham Realty. He asked me if I would fly out and start working at this realty company. Put together a team of guys, sales guys, and I kind of was already in that sales thing. So I came. I was working really hard, making a little bit of money, enough to live in New York, which is pretty hard to do.
Yep. And
then my wife was like, "Hey, you need to find a hobby. All you do is work all day." I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, women are great. Women are great because it's like, well, you don't want me to eat a Chick-fil-A and eat burger, eat fast food all day. You want to have nice things, but then I got to work a lot. You know what I mean? And then I have no time. And then you're working, you're grinding, and you think you're doing the right thing, and you go, oh no, you're not having fun anymore. You don't. And she said, what about baseball? I used to love baseball, and this was 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I was totally detached. And she said, why don't you volunteer, with young kids? I said, what, are you crazy? I got to run a whole business. I got things. I can't do that. I don't have time.
Right.
Yes, you do. She found a place for me. And I actually told her, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. And she went behind my back and made like a fake Gmail and like volunteered my name at a local, at a baseball facility. And she said, hey, I already set you up. You're going down there it's Wednesday, one practice a week in Central Park. The kids are 9 years old. And I said, what? She goes, yeah. She said, you're already in. And she said, you have a double header on Sundays. I said, what do you mean? She said, you're already in there. You're already volunteered. Go down there tomorrow. I said, oh, okay. All right.
What was her cut? Did she get 10% of this? Or?
She got him out of the house.
She gets 50.
Yeah.
She gets 50% in New York.
Yeah, so it was like a volunteer gig. I went down there and I enjoyed being out in the sun. I forgot what it was like to be out like at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon in a grass setting with baseball shit on, like doing baseball stuff. Yeah. And then kids running around, and I was like, I like this. And so I started doing a little more. And the people that I was working for at the time, I kept on giving them suggestions like, hey, that you can evaluate kids a little different. Like, and they never wanted to hear it. But I was like, they were making money, and they were basically taking a kid that had no talent but a lot of money, and they were putting groups of them together, and the parents were kind of like, hey, we're just doing it as an activity. But I saw like 1 or 2 or 3 kids out of the whole team that I was like, those 2 or 3, you know how you see those 2 or 3 and you're like, yo, these guys are better.
Yeah, they stand out.
These guys need something different. These guys aren't doing it for the same purpose. They actually want to be here. So after I kept on giving suggestions, and those guys were like, no, we're not interested in getting. I'm like, well, you have to put these guys in a more competitive atmosphere. It's like, no, I told their parents, and I said, I'm going to find a place. I'm going to take it upon myself to find a place for you to go play that has a little more better competition. I found this place out in Pennsylvania. Guys that were another bigger name travel team at the time that was putting together a team to go to Cooperstown. I brought 3 of my best guys that I've been working with for like, I don't know, 6 months or a year. And I brought it to this thing. There was like maybe 50 kids at this tryout, and all 3 out of 3 of the guys that I brought made it. And so the guy said, hey man, he goes, these are your players? And I said, yeah. And he said, and you're bringing them to play for me? And I was like, yeah. I didn't get it at the time. Right. He was like, wow. He's like, I was like, why are you so surprised? They're just good players. And he's like, no, he's like, baseball coaches are, these days, they don't normally bring good players. Other people just, you don't want anything? Like, what do I need?
It was too pure.
Yeah, the guy's like, you want a Rolex watch or something on the under? I'm like, no, man, I don't need anything. Dude. No, man, just take them and go play. So that's how it started. And then what happened was, he was like, after that, he was like, hey man, he's like, you can evaluate kids, you know what you're looking at. And if the only thing that you're frustrated with over there is that you're working with people that aren't committed, or that are non-committal, and they don't care about showing up to practice and games, why don't you just come over here and you can work with better players, and we have a whole back end system administration. You don't have to do all the stuff that you're doing over there. And I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And that company's name was US Elite at the time. They were just a local team out of Pennsylvania at the time, some good players. But I ended up growing that one team that I started with there at 12 years old. I stayed with them through high school and ended up with I managed 27 different guys' recruitment process. And I ended up, what I'm grateful for the time I was there was I made a lot of network connections with different Division I programs. Like, I have over 160 college coaches' numbers in my, I actually have, sorry about that. I have a ton of pro scouts, just all the networking that went on in the 4 years, but 26 different kids all got athletic money to play college baseball, to get a degree. 4 of the guys were offered to get drafted. 2 of them actually signed. The other ones, I had one kid that offered in the third round, Matt White, turned down third round money, $780,000 to go to UVA.
Oh man.
Turned down 3rd round to go to UVA. UVA.
Good pro. He bet on himself, obviously.
Hey man, well, his dad also owned a law firm, so he wasn't struggling for money. But I still was like, when I saw that, I don't tell kids, when it comes to, am I going to college, am I getting drafted? I don't ever try to get involved and try to do this or that, because if something doesn't go right, that's not on me. But
Right.
to me, I was looking at that. You know me, I just told you I'm from Brooklyn. I got no money. Yeah, you give me 780 grand.
I'm out.
Give me $78. Give me $7.80.
Can I get 78 cents?
How much do I have to pay? I'll pay.
Right.
Yeah, man. And if you don't got that, give me some sunflower seeds and I'll be down there. Give me a bag.
Well, Coach, listen, before you go, I saw you doing some stuff online, some very affordable things with, I think, you and Casey Smith, and
Yeah.
And hearing you speak, I mean, we really want, I think we have about 10 listeners, so you might get one person.
Okay.
But tell everybody, maybe 20. But tell everybody, what you're doing, because I think it's really valuable, and they should do what come to your platform.
Well, I have 2 teams right now, just 8th graders and 9th graders. And that's what I'm comfortable doing. I could have I saw enough kids at tryouts, and I could have made 4 or 5 teams. I didn't have the coaching staff that I felt would have been able to manage it. And I think, so I just went lower and said, I'm just going to do 2 teams with guys that I know. You're never going to make money, I don't think, unless, I don't know, you have 50 teams or something. I don't know how. You can't charge parents enough money to make travel teams. Like, maybe you guys haven't figured out. I don't know. I got to be with you guys. Because I haven't figured that out, and I'm not even trying to figure it out.
Our accountant laughs at us. He goes, "What, guys? Why do you do this?" And he's like, "Is this just a hobby for you?"
He said, he goes, "Is this a passion play or something?"
Yeah, it's what it is.
We all have careers outside of this, luckily, so it is a passion thing where it's not putting food on our table. So, we're lucky in that respect.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, because I thought at first I was gonna hey, I can make a business out of this. Once I did it for a year by myself, it's not meant to make a business out. I don't think that your amateur baseball, you're doing something wrong if you're making a lot of money. I don't know. I don't think that make it right. I guess you can do something right. I don't know if I should phrase it that way, but that's what it sounds like to me, because I've tried it. If you're doing something.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge, dude. Because I mean, in a lot of respects, obviously, like Jim said, we do this because of the passion that we have for the game, and it's a give back also when you instill some of your experience and knowledge onto another young athlete, But then there's this market where people are paying a certain premium to be, in this quote unquote travel landscape, and then you got all these other big, like almost conglomerates where they got, like you said, 40 teams and making, $700,000 a year in 40 teams. And you're saying to yourself, well, you know what? You can do it. Try to carve out a little space for yourself where, you can do this where you're doing the right thing, but you're not also taken away from your family by, losing out on money or anything like that. So it's a delicate balance, I think. I
saw an organization. Somebody told me recently. You guys probably know them. Again, I'm not going to say it, but they charge $7,000 a season for a year, a season. But their whole thing is, we're gonna get you. We do all your recruitment stuff, so you don't have to go in a house. And what do you mean? What are you actually doing for recruitment stuff? Right. Are you making a phone call? Are you sending a video to a college coach? Are you sending a kid to a college camp? What exactly are you doing that requires a parent to pay you $7,000? And then when I see the actual team and the players, and I go, but it doesn't matter. You could pay $100,000. You're not going to play Division I baseball. The more you pay doesn't equal like, oh, now I'm going to get more looks. No, it doesn't mean that at all.
Right.
If you're not getting feedback, like whether it's negative or positive, they're going to say something. That's why some of these things, it's wild to me. Like the kids will call me and say, Coach Ferbs, can you help me with my recruitment thing? Give me some tips. I said, well, what do you got going on right now? What feedback you got? Nothing, but I've been paying this national recruiting something website $1,000 a month for the past 4 months. And I said, wait a second, that's $4,000. And they, yeah. I said, you haven't gotten anything? No, well, I haven't. What do you mean? Do that? They have a video on a website, and they said it's there for college coach to look at. Okay, can I see it? And I go there, and I'm like, wow, like I can't believe you would put those swings out anywhere.
Right.
And let alone for a college coach to see. And it's sad because you got kids, you're capitalizing on people's the lack of the education, right? And parents don't want to miss out. They got money. You know, you guys are blue collar guys. You work hard or whatever. You want to give your kids something that maybe you didn't have. And you go, I don't want my kid to miss an opportunity. And I don't know anything about this process. And then you got guys out here that are selling you a dream
Right.
that if you pay me $1,000 a month, but where's the feedback? Well, we haven't gotten it yet. Wait, then you're not doing your job, because the college coach is either going to say, I like him. When is he playing? When can I see him live? Or B, he's not a guy for us.
Right.
Right.
He's not good enough.
Yep.
If you tell the people he's not good enough, they're not going to be on your website. So you just continue to keep them paying. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is.
So you got those 2 teams, and then what else are you doing? Because you're doing some virtual stuff too. We saw.
Oh yeah, the
right?
virtual.
Yeah,
thing.
that's
So,
what I was
with
saying. Yeah.
Casey, I'm sorry I got off track. The Zoom stuff. So those 2 teams that I had, once the season got canceled, you know, all these people they pay. Ours is $1,800, and the parents, even though I don't know what that's considered a lot or a little bit of money, they paid. The uniforms came, all the tournaments. You guys know all the Diamond Nation already canceled everything, and they're not saying, "Oh, we're giving you your money back." They're saying,
you just hit a sour note with Brian Dorsey, because he had to get into a little spat with Diamond Nation because they didn't want to cut a check back.
yeah, and I'm saying, they're saying, "Well, we'll give you a credit at a later date when the things." I'm saying, hold on, if this is 6 months later. What if my parents have vacations? What if we're not able to do it? Like if it's our fault or something, but I'm like, you can't just. And then thank God I have a good relationship with a lot of my parents, so they're not saying, because if I don't have money to feed my family during this time or something, I got laid off.
Right.
It's going is little Johnny's baseball, right? So basically, we're trying to figure out a way to bring some value to the families without, you know, them getting their money back. So I reached out to a couple of those guys, said, could you guys team up with me and bring some hitting knowledge to my guys 2 or 3 times a week. We tried it once, and all my guys really loved it. They were like, hey, I bought Hunter Mets from the Toronto Blue Jays. Nate Headley, who's Chase Headley, the guy playing the big leagues, the Padres and Yankees, was on. And what we did was we got really good feedback from my guys. And they said, you know, they like the idea of multiple coaches talking about the same thing from different perspectives. They were like, yeah, usually in baseball, like there's just one coach that comes out and tells you what you're doing wrong.
Right.
That's
Right.
you know, it was cool to have some different personalities and stuff, but we're doing it now once a week, this Thursday. We have typically, we'll bring a guest, either a player like a current pro player to break down his own swing, break down his own at bat, so he can tell you what he was doing there. We brought Michael Chavis in from the Boston Red Sox. We'll have DJ LeMahieu coming up.
Oh, baby.
Yep, we had Chase Headley come on. We had Mike Olt, ex-big leaguer, just last week come on. So we're doing that once every Thursday. On Mondays, I'm doing catching stuff for catchers. I'm just trying to basically create some type of a learning thing where it's not $100 an hour, but you can get a lot of drills for the week and get 3 or 4 drills to add to your progressions during the week. Maybe some keynotes to think about as far as just an approach standpoint, and maybe just sharing some experiences and stories about stuff.
Now, where
That's
do they
awesome.
find that? Where do they go for that?
They can click the link in my bio,
At Coach Ferber.
Coach
on
Ferber
Instagram.
On Instagram, yep. They can go to Outfront Hitting on Casey's Outfront Hitting on his bio.
Okay.
Pretty much just we've also had some teams sign up, like the high schools. You know, we found that some of the high school coaches we have really good relationships with. They're sending us, because they don't really have like the Zoom stuff set up and things. They weren't really good with that, so they're sending us their team, so they have stuff to do, right? There's other high school coaches that pretty much abandoned their whole team. That's kind of weird. They're like, the season was over, and it's actually like, wait a second, just because the season's over, I'm still a coach. I still got to like give direction.
Well, a lot of the high school guys just go, that's my $8,000 check. That's all that is.
Yeah, it's crazy. So now we're just doing that once a week, and they can register for the class, and also you get the record. We record them, So
Good.
if you register and for some reason you can't make the class, an email link sent out with everything that's on there so you can refer back to it, any of the drills or anything like that.
That's great.
Yeah, it really
That's
is.
Well, look,
Coach,
Ferbs, man,
I
I
got
tell you.
one thing I want
go ahead,
to put
Dorsey,
you on the
sorry.
spot with. You talked about the high school coaches. So several minutes ago, while we were on here, the governing body in Suffolk County canceled the season here. So that's new information that we didn't have when we started this call. But I got the best motivator around online right now. What can you say to our kids out there in Suffolk County right now? Motivate them, pick them, and them look forward.
Man, I could say that everything happens for a reason, and as sucks as cliche as it is, if I can't control it, there's no point in me spending a second thinking about it. I have to think about what's next, because all that is overthinking it robs us of all our joy. Overthinking anything, basically, we can't do it. Okay, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, I have to get my mind onto a different mode of thinking. And obviously, you all go through that depression where you get hit with, and you're like, dang, like, I can't believe it. I feel worse for the seniors in high school than I do for the seniors in college.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got prom. I'm not even talking about baseball. How many times you get to go to prom?
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are memories that you're not going to be able to repeat. Homecoming.
Coach,
prom.
I didn't go to prom because I was too focused on baseball, so I didn't care.
Hey, don't lie. That was that girl that Brian stole from you.
That's what happened.
Yes.
That's exactly
Yes.
what happened.
The force is strong in him.
Hey, he tried to change the story. He said it was because of baseball. And Brian's down there like, nah, I took that girl from back in the day.
Yeah. And that's his younger brother taking his girlfriend. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
imagine.
He's very handsome.
Yeah.
Hey, Ferbs, man, I tell you what, I love listening to you talk, dude, and just your background alone, and me being a Brooklyn guy too, growing up in Bed-Stuy, like I know that whole environment that you talked about. And one of the things that really kind of, resonated with me is you talk about how you wish you would have had that support system in place, right? And I think you do a tremendous job when I hear you talk about positive thinking, right? It seems like you're trying to convey a message back to people to be that support for them, right? That's what I get out of it, and I think that's an awesome thing that you're doing, bro. And I'm a fan. I'm like listening to you, and I'm like, I think you're a great story. I think you're extremely infectious. And I'm so happy that we were able to get you on this call with us, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. I mean, yeah, what you're saying is spot on. I kind of feel like if I can get a kid to really believe that my biggest interest is to see him shine on a baseball field. You know what I mean? It's not for me to prove a point about what the right hitting philosophy is. A lot of coaches, I think, maybe they're not doing it, but it looks like instead of putting the kid first, they want to use the athlete as a tool to prove something, like that either they're a good coach or they develop this guy or something like that. More often than not, we have more of an impact not on physical mechanical stuff that I think people might think that they do. And to be honest, young kids, they don't follow opinions. They follow examples. They don't follow guys' opinions. I think a lot of coaches think that, but I don't think my opinion, my coach, I never thought my players valued my opinion. And I know it sounds crazy, but I knew how I thought about my coach. I loved him. I really tuned out a lot of what he said, but I loved him, so I would go through a wall for him. And that's what actually counted. But I wasn't really all those half-hour lectures after the game about like lofty soliloquies when you lost the game and you're already in a bad frame of mind. Yeah. I never really remembered almost anything that he said.
Yep.
Because even now, I mean, bits and pieces, but I knew that he cared about me. And I had no doubt that he wanted to see me shine. So that's why I went hard for him. So I feel like that's more key for me than trying to get a point across,
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. I think one last thing I got before we let you go is, and you don't need to do this now, but Josh said we didn't make it until you gave us a nickname. So hopefully you come up with a nickname for us.
You mean as a team? Are you going to be the Four Horsemen or something like that?
Sounds good. We'll take it.
We got right now. You're the Four Horsemen, but we'll have to get individual nicknames for you guys.
There you go. We'll wait on that. We'll do this again though, because this was awesome, man.
Appreciate you guys, man. If you guys ever want to do something else on an Insta Live or something,
collab. We should collaborate on some other things for sure.
Yeah, great. Well, just to get your guys' the wild pitch stuff out. If you guys want to send me little bits and pieces or something like that, I can tag in the story and stuff for the same thing I'm doing. It's not so difficult to do that. And if you guys want to get on a live sometime and answer some questions, we can do it too.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
And if you guys,
thanks.
And listen, if you guys got any first rounders in 8th or 9th grade, I got a Rolex watch. It's a fake one.
Yeah, and if you have any like 4th rounders, we'll take them at New York Tech. They don't need to sign.
Hey. Hey, you're gonna get a Rolex from Ferb's and for 3 players, for 3 13-year-old players, and when you got it, it's gonna just fall apart out of the box. You got me, man. It's one of them Chinese.
It ticks. It doesn't just spin. It ticks.
Yeah. Not as smooth.
Well, it's a real pleasure talking to you guys.
All right. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
For sure. We'll do it again. We can do it again anytime. I hope you guys, I wish you well and stay safe and I hope all your families, everything. God bless you guys.
Yeah, you too.
Same to you.
Well, folks, thanks for tuning in, and until next time.
Stay crispy out there, Playboys. Later, guys.